Hi folks, I am the one and only Florida Man, broadcasting to you from a place other than Florida Man. Today I'm bringing you a variant after-action report that I played with various players from PlayDiplomacy.com. Argentina was played by AKFD and later Harun Vias. Brazil was played by the mysterious V-Ghost. Chile was ruled by Jordan767. Colombia was played by the venerable Antigonos. Paraguay was played with great skill by Roland Trotter. Peru was played by Don Juan of Austria. Venezuela was controlled by the brutal dictator Bratz FFL, and I played the famously mighty and powerful nation of Bolivia. This variant is called South American Supremacy, and although the victory condition, gaining 18 supply centers, is the same as on the standard map, you will note that this map is slightly different from the standard map, in that the game takes place in South America, there are navigable rivers on this map, and the Andes are a factor in the game. Specifically, the Andes are impassable, except for in areas where there are mountain passes, which are indicated on the map. In case you are unfamiliar with South American geography, the Andes are a mountain range that divides the continent, separating the west coast from the much larger eastern portion of the map. The existence of the Andes plays a huge role in playing on this map, so it needed to be mentioned here. Also, it's worth noting that unlike the War in the Americas map, this map takes place in an era before the Panama Canal, so I believe there's only one way to get fleets from the east coast to the west coast or vice versa, and that's by going through the Straits of Magellan. Also, there are impassable spaces on this map: Tierra del Fuego, British Guiana, Dutch Guiana, and French Guiana. Now we've got these geography notes out of the way. This after-action report is the Paraguayan perspective. Now, on to the game.
I'll say, I don't feel like I made any major mistakes in the game, and I certainly do not regret any decisions I made in the defense of the Paraguayan families.
Oh my. I see we're already justifying our war crimes.
Paraguay did better this time than the actual 19th century. Like, a lot better.
Oh my gosh.
It's true, and it's awful. Like, the South American wars, particularly the Paraguayan wars, I shouldn't have joked about that. Anyway. But starting off, we want to start with the beginning position. And I actually contest this map. Okay, I don't know if you talked about this with Chile in the early part of the game, but this is not the map that existed on turn 1.
It was a little bit different.
Yes, it was.
Something Chile pointed out.
Okay. Anyway, so my early thoughts here was that I was kind of doomed at the start. Okay.
Oh, I'm glad you started out optimistic.
Yeah. And so I was sandwiched between Argentina and Brazil, and I would like to read my first message to Argentina.
Please.
Hey, Argentina. We, in the Paraguayan government, send attached a former declaration of war between our countries. Now, we know you wouldn't want to face our superior forces, so we hope to endeavor to reach peace agreements before season's end, and then our force will not immediately crush you under its silver heel. And that worked. All right, Argentina and I did not fight for the first couple years of the game, although I will say that my overall tenor, okay, pretty shortly in here, okay. My first moves are pretty obvious, I feel, going to Corrientes and Perna.
Just going for adjacent supply centers makes sense.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious what was, like, I can't imagine another set of openings that's, like, good strategy. Like, I guess I could have gone for like the Choco Formosa and try to take Salters. It feels crazy to not go for Paraná when it's available, and not going there just gives it to Brazil. Brazil, of course, being the largest country on the map from the very start.
For some reason, on a map where some powers start with 2 centers, Brazil starts with 4.
Yeah, and I think it's a very interesting design choice, and it definitely gave a dynamic, okay? Like, we started off early on with the small powers got their own group chat that wasn't really used very much, but it sort of set a tone to the negotiations.
Yeah, I think that the small power group chat actually helped for propaganda purposes, to be honest.
Yeah, because it sort of like, it changed everyone's priors a little bit. Okay, and it made it so that everybody was like, oh, we need to figure out how to stop Argentina, which only has 3 supply centers itself. Okay, it's not that much bigger.
No.
And also stop Brazil and all those sorts of things.
It created an awareness. It created kind of a metagame sort of awareness.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a bad thing, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like my immediate plan from the start was like, okay, have peace with one of Brazil or Argentina and deal with the other one. That was sort of the bent. I wasn't focused on attacking Bolivia from the get-go because you were also small at the time.
I appreciate that.
It seemed it seemed like it would be in poor taste, and it seemed like it would be just incorrect. Okay, like if I attacked you, I'd be putting target on my own back, and like Argentina would come in to save you. All sorts of nonsense would take place if I did these sort of unconventional moves there. One thing I like about playing an underplayed variant like this is that you can kind of like, while the game's going on, you'd be like, okay, what should happen in this game? What's normal? Okay, what's the juggernaut of the map? Who's going to be the dominant naval power? All those sorts of things. And so, like, as you're playing, you're like, yeah, okay, what should be how the game works? And it's like you're creating the theory on the fly based on just, like, gut instincts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so pretty much it was like, okay, either Brazil or Argentina. And I was like, okay, both of them were reasonably responsive. I think that Argentina was writing more messages. But, I know, things changed in fall. Okay, we can skip to that one. Because I took Sao Paulo there. And I feel like this is perhaps the big surprise on the map for this turn.
Very warlike Paraguayan leader.
All right, because the YouTube viewer will not know this, even though I have said so at length to everyone else on the board. I told Brazil I was moving to Sao Paulo. He knew, or should have known, okay? Because I didn't want to have it so that 2 armies would be next to Paraná, because, like, because it would be hard to defend, okay? Yeah. Brazil's already bigger than me, okay? And with Brazil going down to Rio Grande do Sul, like, it would be defensively difficult. And so I assumed that he would hold the army in Sao Paulo, or like bounce me with, or like move the fleet back or something. Okay, I assumed I wasn't going to get in, and then I did. Okay, and I feel like that spelled the beginning of the end for Brazil. And I was at war with him until I think it was 1841 or something like that. And I don't know, it put me in an awkward diplomatic situation, okay, being essentially the first power to really start a war.
Paraguay,
not on purpose,
an underdog, and therefore chose to sucker punch the biggest person in the room. And
that's a characterization, but I contest it because I didn't think I was actually going to get in.
I think my characterization makes you look cooler, to be honest.
I mean, it's not like I brought the prop. Anyway, so I took Sao Paulo, and that sort of committed me to the war with Brazil. Okay, I was not under any real illusions, even though I tried to get Brazil to accept peace in like favorable terms. But it's not like I was going to move out of Sao Paulo, was I? Okay, just because it's a misunderstanding doesn't mean I don't have it, and because I have, possession is 90% of the law, especially diplomacy.
I feel compelled to point out that's probably not how the real law works, but definitely diplomacy.
It's absolutely how diplomacy works.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, later on you're going to be taking Salta, okay? And there's I don't know if there are any discussions about you ever returning Salta to Argentina, right? Yeah.
Funny thing about that, I actually told Argentina that I was going to move into Salta, and Argentina just ignored me and moved right out.
Oh, so when the Bolivian nation attacks Argentina, then it's okay. Unprovoked.
We were conducting planned military exercises in...
and Argentina just didn't show up to anyone by default. And, in the fine print of the military exercise was occupation of the city, of course.
Well, a bunch of vulnerable Salta residents needed protection because there was no Argentinian force to keep them warm and safe.
Yeah. You get all like the military police in there. Anyway, so that was the first enormous shift in the diplomatic tenor in the game. Is just all the first year, and sort of my connections to the various other powers like changed at that point.
Yeah.
And I will note that like I was writing to every power at this point, and it was already pretty clear who the real communicators were. Okay, because like, oh gosh, how long was Colombia's first message to me? He wrote me first, and he wrote me like 3 paragraphs. I think that Colombia's first message to me was longer than the entire communications that I received from either Venezuela or Peru in the entire game.
In fairness to Peru, what exactly were you going to do for them?
I'm not sure. But then again, I have a tendency to write long messages to everyone, okay? Often
That's fair. That's fair.
I have sort of a policy of sending people unsolicited advice. Okay, I was like, you should move here. This is tactically correct for you.
Hey, it's just if it helps them, then you win brownie points. So
yeah,
and maybe they'll follow your advice later when you give them advice to do something that's more dubious.
Yeah, I mean, I rarely send things that are truly dubious, but anything that's dubious is like just if there's going to be an overall paradigm shift on the board. Which is a euphemistic way to say I'm going to stab them. And yeah, I sent a number of helpful tips to people like Venezuela or Colombia or Peru, and they were not necessarily responded to, but I think that it's a valuable way to interact with powers that you otherwise wouldn't interact with, and it builds rapport that could last through the rest of the game, which I think is valuable for whoever winds up winning in the North, which in our case happened to be the player who wrote the most. It's, in my experience, the players who write more do better.
That is true.
Right? You just sort of like hold up a ruler to how they do, and you assign the center count at the end of the game based on that. Or center count in late game, as it were.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I don't have any real commentary on this particular screen. I built 2 armies. You might notice that Paraguay doesn't have a coastline.
But you do have, well, you do have a river running through you.
I do. A river runs through it. But, like, at what point is Paraguay going to become a serious naval power? I mean, it's not like Paraguay's ever going to end up with, like, 3 fleets at the end of the game.
Well, not with that attitude.
No, not with that attitude. But I knew that I couldn't really afford a down payment on, how to win the game.
Well, not right then.
Early on.
I
knew that at some point I'd have to find time to build a fleet or 2 just to make it so that, like, the more naval powers of, especially, like, Chile. Mm-hmm. I was really worried about you and Chile allying and beating up Argentina and then just continuing. Okay, that Chile just keeps going east.
You know, if I was a wiser person, that's what we would have done.
I don't know. It turned out that like there were no real long-term alliances in this game that I could pick out.
No, there weren't.
Like the longest thing going on was like there's going to be a détente between you and Colombia, which by the way you attacked Colombia at some pretty shortly in here, and it was. I would like to hear your perspective on that, but presumably that'll be in your own after-action report.
I would just note that my war on Colombia was a very successful endeavor.
Oh no, I 100% agree. Like you achieved some serious strategic objectives. By which I mean you utterly dominated the naval game of the Pacific for years.
I mean, really, like, it's kind of amazing how successful my war with Colombia feels in retrospect, considering that I only got 1 Colombian center out of it.
Yeah, the Galapagos. It was very, I felt very Master Commander of the Far Side of the World.
Yeah.
I watched that movie recently, and, like...
It's a good movie.
Yeah. Like, that takes place in just the general area of the western side of this map. Anyway, so unfortunately I had to continue the war with Brazil, and I sort of have to...
Yes.
I didn't want to get involved in the West. Okay, and by West I mean Southwest, obviously.
Yes, you mean the area where Chile and I were both trying to get you involved? I think.
Yeah, precisely. And it's all like, okay, how do I stonewall them long enough that I can be sure that Argentina won't help Brazil destroy me?
Yeah.
And in terms of that, yeah, it's like, okay, how do I get Montevideo, or how do I take Rio Grande do Sul, all that sort of stuff. And those are my general goals in this era of the game. And I don't know if we formalized a DMZ in Chaco and Formosa, though later on we did.
Yes, later on that happened.
Okay, because it just felt incorrect for us to fight from the get-go.
Yeah, I think so. I think
we just wouldn't be able to match the forces, and in my estimation, I wouldn't be able to make any headway unless I could get up to Mato Grosso, which I think is one of the most important centers. Not centers, one of the most important spaces in the game.
I think
just by sheer size, it connects to so many things. It's not as good as I thought it was on the original map, but it was still pretty good.
Yeah.
And at some point, I had it, and then I left. And that was probably still an okay decision. I got Marignano out of it. But I think that we can, move forward from this particular screen. Sure, I took Paraná on this thing here. And then, helpfully, Argentina supported me into Rio Grande do Sul. So here I've managed to get support from Argentina. We could probably count up all of the supports that I have. And I think that I've supported or was supported by every power on the board except Peru by the end of the game.
I could believe that. You did your diploming very well. And
well, thank you.
Also, I think you were tactically stronger than Brazil was in this game.
I'm pretty confident in my tactical ability. I feel like about 80% of the time, if there's an even number of troops on both sides and nobody else is interfering, I'll probably win. Eventually. It took till 1841.
That is a good confidence to have. I myself do not have it, but my preference is that I never be in a fair fight. I like to always have somebody ready to jump on the other person with me, or I like to have an overwhelming numbers advantage. It's always good practice to be the faster person in a race, to not race somebody who's faster than you if you care about winning. And
I will say that it felt that, not quite at this point in the game, but it felt like I was racing you.
No, I can totally see that.
And I believe that you said as much, at least in one message.
I felt the same way about you. I was very concerned about this rapid Paraguayan expansion, the warlike nation here on the eastern side of this map is a threat to all our security, and an Andean curtain has gone up.
My one tactical tip, okay, that I've wanted to give, because I've assumed that the video is going to happen since about this time in the game, because I do a moderate amount of research about other players. I was like, oh, Florida Man has a YouTube channel at some point. I should watch a lot of Florida Man's YouTube videos.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so, at this point, I feel I was dominating the war against Brazil. And part of that is that Brazil was a very passive player. Okay? And by passive, I mean that Brazil did a lot of support to hold. Yeah. And I think that supports to hold are bad, but you shouldn't do them most of the time.
I think I think you're right. I think that
the overall thing is that if your unit can move, it probably should move somewhere.
I think that you win your fight against Brazil because you have a more active, aggressive style, at least in a significant part. If we go back a season, we see that Brazil's fleet in Bahia de Todos os Santos just holds in place. It should have moved forward into one of the other sea spaces or something. And
Like, a lot of the times, my anticipated moves for Brazil were better than Brazil's actual moves.
yes, I think so as well. I felt the same way. When you initially tried to sucker punch Brazil, in my perception,
Try.
when you initially successfully occupied one of Brazil's home centers, I just thought, oh wow, that was a bad move. Paraguay's going to get booted right out of there, and then Brazil's going to overrun everything Paraguayan, and Brazil found their target.
Obviously, I immediately took the opportunity to get an army behind the line, and armies behind the line are like, really good because what are they going to do about it? Like they have to devote a lot of resources to destroy it. Okay, because where it is right now, you need like 4 units to actually get rid of the problem. And until then, you can't move Salvador. Like, you've got Torres dos Santos moving back to Salvador. And you've got Rio de Janeiro just, like, support holding. It's like, oh, man. I was not impressed tactically with Brazil's play, and also Brazil didn't have, like, a lot of thumbs in other pies. It helped a little bit that, Venezuela also took Manaus here.
Oh, yeah. Venezuela just saw the writing on the wall, though, and said,
yeah,
if I take this, there won't ever be any retaliation, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. I will say, though, that Venezuela's choice of builds were definitely incorrect, okay? Yeah. I mean, just look at the map, okay? Look at where the water is, and look at where the land is.
And look at
you need armies! You need armies, okay? And that wound up being, like, the downfall of Venezuela when Colombia actually managed to mount an offensive against them.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't get there.
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable, actually, because at this point, Colombia is basically fighting a two-front war, one side of which is Peru and one side of which is Venezuela, but neither of them is going to make any progress against Colombia.
You're already hitting the Galapagos. You're in there already.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I'm already helping Peru.
Yeah. I remember at one point you said that you were there to defend, it might be Peru's integrity.
Defend the independence of the Peruvian nation from the depredations of the Colombian, the Colombian military.
Expansion. Yeah, the Colombian expansion.
Yeah, the Colombian expansion, that's right.
Yeah, and that lasted for like 2 turns.
Look, the Bolivian parliament held a vote, and we decided to switch sides.
A secret vote, of course. They didn't allow all the cameras in. Or the daguerreotypes. They didn't allow the daguerreotypes in. And I will also say that Peru, is this fall? I think this is...
probably not. I'm not sure. No, it's probably fall, actually, yeah.
Yeah. This is the big... Peruvian snafu where they didn't manage to get a build.
Yeah.
Which is that might be the first of many such instances among the various eliminated powers of the game where just like you don't manage to build the unit. What's the point of having a supply center if you don't get a unit out of it?
Yeah. Peru should have used Aquiles to support himself into Iquitos instead of just bouncing there.
Yeah.
And he could have done it, and I think I would have done it in his place, especially because there was no downside. Nascasi was... I just moved into Nascasi, so I couldn't have snuck into Peru's center of Trujillo at that point. Mm-hmm. And it sure would have made Peru a lot more secure against attack.
Yeah. Just like being able to get like another army or another fleet, it hardly matters. Like, actually, if they managed to get like another army there, then Aquiles could have gone up to Amazonas, and then it's a very different war.
I think so. I think Peru could have had a very different war. I will say that I think that Peru was one of the weakest positions to start off with. Probably the weakest in my mind.
Oh, sure, but, like, Paraguay was the weakest, and it worked fine.
That's a good point. I mean, I guess Peru just felt like the weakest because, to me, it was like in a position that I wanted to attack as soon as I sat down. But
Yeah.
if I was in Brazil, I would have probably wanted to attack Paraguay as soon as I sat down. So
Yeah. Anyway, in the interest of moving on, we probably should. Although I will note that Chile is attacking Argentina and mostly alone, but you're in Salta now.
hey, I decided to chip in.
This was not a good year for Argentina.
Argentina was told that a unit would move into Salta.
So you claim. However, are you doing an after-action report for Argentina? I didn't think so. I look forward to talking about the deconstruction of Argentina because I was very proud of it. Actually, a lot of my attacks wound up being like attack and the country just disintegrates immediately.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that was your general pattern: is you attack, you punch the person in the jaw, and just picture the skeleton and the entire lower half of their head falls apart like a zombie or something.
Yeah, yes. I was actually thinking zombie just as you described that. Okay, you take a baseball bat through them. Oh gosh. Anyway, my build here is obvious. Most of my builds, I feel, are obvious. In fact, I felt for a lot of the early game that I could have played my orders face up and it would have made no difference whatsoever.
Well, your build orders for sure in the early game because you did. It's true. You just need.
I think next year I get the fleet, but yeah, it's just generally like obvious to build armies. It's even more obvious than for Austria in the base game. Like that was my comparison.
I agree. I was actually thinking that you're sort of like the Austria of this game in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, surrounded by larger powers. Anyway, so
the bullying of Brazil continues here.
The bullying in Brazil does continue, but we have my first unit get destroyed. Okay, Brazil decided that was the most important thing, was to destroy the unit behind the lines. Anyway, so I got Sao Paulo back after that.
Oh my gosh.
And Venezuela has Mato Grosso, which means that you had Brazil in turn 1 with Mato Grosso, and now you have Venezuela in the hot seat of the best non-supply center space of the game.
Yeah.
And I note that you are doing something interesting here, which is you have like the empire of my dreams here right now, okay? And it's going to get better because you have like 3 units helping Peru, and you have a unit that's hanging out, having stabbed Argentina in the back, and you have 1 unit that is going down to grab a free supply center from Chile.
So
congratulations! At this point, I was really worried about you.
The reason why Santa Cruz held in place was because I was starting to be worried about you, because I thought at any moment this very powerful and aggressive Paraguayan, who has avoided getting drawn into the fight with Argentina and has almost destroyed Brazil, from my point of view, could just...
Yeah, I'd say that at this point Brazil is essentially rump state.
Yeah.
Like, Brazil sticks around for a really long time, I think, proportionally, because I decided to start devoting a few units elsewhere, and that sort of stagnated things. Salvador and Rio de Janeiro were hard to take. Like, I got Maranhão first, okay? Maranhão is not as close as Rio de Janeiro. I'm already next to that, but I got Maranhão first because I just couldn't get through.
Yeah, no, I understand. But yeah.
And meanwhile, Chile is continuing to attack Argentina. Anyway, we can move to the next turn where I believe that you take Valparaiso. For the first time, is it? I don't know if you do it a second time.
No, it's the only time. Sadly.
Okay. Yeah, but like
mistakes.
I have no real. Yes, I do have a note for this one. Okay, so Santa Fe. Okay, which is my army that has moved in to the west. Okay, I'm getting involved by moving somewhere where it's uncontested, and I have permission. Argentina gave me permission here.
Oh.
And this is also the turn where AKFD decided that schoolwork was too much and was replaced by Harun Vias, which I assume is how to pronounce the name. I recognize the username from over the years reading the forum on Play Diplomacy.
Oh, huh.
I remember that he posts some. I had some high hopes for Harun Vias then, but he did not send a lot of messages.
No.
Which really surprised me. I think that he took it really as just like, oh, a courtesy that Argentina should put in some moves.
Yeah, I understand. I think I sort of understand why somebody taking over this position as Argentina might sort of decide to give up. But
yeah.
But
anyway, yeah. So like, one effect of you attacking Chile is that I became a lot less scared of Chile. Okay, because there's something for him to be worried about, which is you have a unit that's right next to his second supply center, and supply centers matter on this map.
Yeah.
And so this is the spring move, yeah. So in fall, I decide, okay, I'll help Chile take down Argentina, and it'll be totally fine, and I'll get some gains and a steadfast ally who is, importantly, smaller than I am.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I think that deciding to work against me at this point is probably going to be a smart play on your part.
I actually haven't decided to work against you at this point. I've so far mostly decided, okay, take down Argentina, reevaluate after that. Anyway, so I noticed that you started doing a self-bouncing Chaco. I considered for a little bit doing a really cheeky support you to Chaco, with like support Santa Cruz to Chaco and just walk in.
Oh.
I considered that one. But I didn't actually do it because I was like, oh, Maranhão is an option. And Venezuela is going for Maranhão. That looks like a good way to win the war with Brazil. Okay? And I sent a message to Venezuela being like, I don't need Maranhão. If you would like, I will support you in. I just want Brazil to die. Or something along those lines. And he said yes. Which, good for him. And it looks at this point that Venezuela is going to be the dominant power in the north, so it's good to get in his good graces.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that at the same time that he takes your support, Colombia is actually beginning to has made peace with me now, and is actually beginning to make progress, pushing Venezuela back a little bit.
Yeah, so I'd kind of like to hear a little bit about how the diplomacy with Colombia worked out here. Like, what were the terms, and how long did it take for Colombia to agree to them? Like, I've presumed that one of the terms was that Colombia never build another Pacific fleet.
That's correct. That was the primary term.
Yeah, and you described that as a bit of a coup, because at that point you become the undisputed ruler of the Pacific for a time.
Should have used that power to destroy Chile, honestly, if I had really been focusing on accomplishing one objective at a time. I do feel like that was important. I think Colombia was kind of desperate to not be in a two-front war, and so was willing to be sort of generous about what would happen if I was willing to call off fighting them and let them fight Peru on their own. And I said, well, tell you what, if you don't hold a grudge about me taking the Galapagos and don't agree not to build any Pacific fleets after this, I'll take Peru out with you. And of course, I knew I was going to be the primary beneficiary in terms of supply centers there. You see, I'm going to get Trujillo and Lima from that. And I figured I could set myself up really well because they're on my side of the Andes, the side of the Andes that I'm looking to be dominant in. I think I'll probably be able to control those centers for a very long time, even if I'm besieged at some point.
And you do actually defend those centers for a long time. You managed to keep the islands for what felt like forever.
I I kept
And
Lima told me.
I don't know if you've mentioned this in any after action reports yet, but the turns were like 3 days, and the game lasted from August to December.
Yeah, wow. Oh my goodness. It was a good game though.
Oh no, this was one of the best games that I've played.
Absolutely, it was great. I felt like it was kind of the wild, wild west, because normally in diplomacy, I feel like there are almost certain moves you feel obliged to.
Yeah. And while I felt that a lot of my moves were obvious to me, apparently they weren't obvious to anyone else. And nobody knows what's supposed to happen. People don't actually know what the spheres of influence are.
Right.
Although I figured pretty early on that it was probably a north-south sort of thing.
Yeah, I think you were right.
Because like if it was an east-west thing, the Andes just like really favor the east dominating.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right about that. The Andes make it really interesting.
The Andes are fun because like armies can't really cross them.
Right. You can't.
Okay, unless they're like totally unopposed.
Yeah.
And at this point, Chile's position here is really awkward because the units that are on the eastern side of the Andes are just like completely separate from the western side of the Andes. It's worse than Russia.
Yeah. Chile's got some problems here.
I feel like most countries have some problems, except Colombia. Colombia, at the start of the game, I think, doesn't actually have any real problems.
Yeah, I think that...
Like, they've got two neighbors, sure, but, like, what are the odds that Venezuela and Peru actually put together, the alliance against you? Okay, like, especially this Venezuela and Peru. like knowing now what kinds of players those two were, Colombia was destined for greatness.
Well, neither of them did play very strongly or successfully against Colombia, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm throwing a bit too much shade here, but that's just what it feels like. Anyway, this is the turn where Peru gets eliminated. No, Lima, there's still Lima.
Yeah, but...
there's the dramatic turn where you knew for a fact that Peru was going to go out. That's like next year, I think.
Yes, it's definitely about to happen.
Meanwhile, Chile and I have started the deconstruction of Argentina.
Yeah, Argentina's already down to 3 centers.
And they're not good centers to have.
No, they're split apart.
Yeah, and Argentina also does a really bad job of guessing with, Gulf of San Jorge, okay? It's, like, I don't know. I was arguing with Chile that you shouldn't worry too much about the Argentinian fleet because it can only take one supply center, right? And if you were to devote a fleet to just like move to Gulf of San Jorge itself, like you essentially need to devote one unit to neutralize this fleet.
That is true. Yeah.
That didn't wind up really manifesting, and the final outpost of Argentina was Las Malvinas, the Falklands. Okay.
Yes, I prefer that term. Yeah. And yeah, that's true. Argentina manages to hold out there basically forever. Without really,
it's very late. It's like one of the last things that happens in the game. Like we're already at that point, stopping Colombia. Not to spoil the after-action reports for anyone, but that's where things are going.
Yes.
Anyway, Brazil's down to the 2 centers. I take Maranhão from Venezuela. Gosh, did I tell Venezuela I was moving there? I have to check, and I only have like a dozen or so messages to him about it.
The very power-hungry Paraguayan leadership this year took Maranhão, seizing sovereign Venezuelan territory while simultaneously getting into a border skirmish with Bolivia and occupying an Argentinian center.
Yeah. On this turn, Venezuela had actually pretty much stopped talking to me. Okay. The last a message that I sent to Venezuela was on September 28th. Telling them that I would be against them getting down to Salvador. Okay, because I was still worried at that point that Venezuela was going to win the North, and them getting Salvador would be a big problem.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, because that pretty much means that they could get below. I don't know the classic term for this thing, but getting to Valle de Todos los Santos, and that's a really bad place for a northern fleet to get to. It's a little. I compared it to somebody to Italy getting to Mid-Atlantic Ocean. That, like, at that point, you're in trouble because that fleet is never leaving the Atlantic, ever.
That's true.
And by ever, I mean it takes a concerted effort to push it back from every power that's still left.
I said, assuming it didn't get forward of that. Ugh.
Yeah. Anyway, so Peru gets eliminated here, and Chile and I are still deconstructing Argentina. I'm not sure what else interesting happened that turn. You do actually want to turn that one back. Okay, you actually want to turn back 2 moves. I want to see the builds.
Okay.
For the previous. All right, the retreats, if you have them.
I don't think I.
Okay. So just scroll back a bit. You can see that Valparaiso was dislodged. Okay, I feel like the following turn matters. Okay, because you destroyed Valparaiso, right?
Yes.
You have peace with Colombia.
Yes.
You have destroyed Peru. You have and you have built 2 more armies.
Okay.
What is the message that sends, do you think? What message do you think in Bolivia? And I'm going to note that I consider you the most expansionist power at this point because you stretch, 2/3 to 3/4 of the map north-south. Okay? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 centers.
I am shocked that this is perceived in this way by the Paraguayan leadership, but I can tell you that your massive armies here looked mighty threatening to me, and so I felt that I needed a defensive force in order to make sure I could hold on to my gains from earlier in the game.
Yeah, and so far pretty much all your gains have been from the Pacific. Well, not all your gains. Okay, you have 3 supply centers you've picked up east of the Andes. Okay,
and
the classic Bolivia, huh?
And they're all vulnerable.
I worry about it. I felt like at this point that if I didn't make the first move, I would not be favored. The reason for that is that I'm still at war with Brazil. I'm still at war with them, and the second that anyone attacks me, Brazil's going to ally them. Okay, and so that would be a force of 3 Bolivian units and 2 Brazilian units. Attacking in from 2 directions.
I still think you have decent odds, but
I think that I have decent odds, but you talked earlier, right just now, about how you want to have an unfair war most of the time.
Preferably, I would like to not only be faster than the other racer in the race, but I would also like a sniper to shoot him in the leg.
Ideal, yeah. Anyway, so those are the things that informed my decision to preemptively defend Paraguay by moving to Chaco, which I note is a natural Paraguayan neutral non-supply center. It is part of Paraguay.
Oh.
Okay.
I in that case.
In that case, it's entirely just real. I'm moving into my own backyard, as it were. Anyway,
these are just military exercises conducted, just training drills. Nothing to worry about here.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're continuing to deconstruct Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm also assuming that Argentina, allied with you. So, there's actually a fair number of armies all across my border here that I would worry about if you were to be able to get into Chaco and or Formosa. Mostly Formosa because it borders both of my home centers. And that would be a problem for what I feel is one of the main themes of the map, which is a lack of places to build. So, if I needed to garrison both my home supply centers, that is not good.
Right. I do see that. I think I should have been more aggressive here, to be honest.
Probably. I was actually really surprised that the move to Chaco didn't bounce because you had been self-bouncing there a lot. I think you self-bounced in the previous fall turn there.
I felt like I already felt like I was outmatched by your forces on the east side of the Andes. So I was. These moves were actually intended.
This is appeasement.
These were intended to be defensive moves, so that if you did decide to move anything west, I have at least the ability to support hold.
And I had made such a concession by building an Asunción instead of Concepcion.
Yeah,
that was something we talked about, if I remember right. I didn't read through all the messages for the game because there are thousands and thousands of words between me and you and me and Chile and me and Colombia.
I appreciate how refreshed you are on things. I think this was the part where I was trying really hard to get you to build another fleet, because I felt that the build-up of armies for both of our countries in the middle of the map, right near each other, was...
I will say this. You're lucky I built the one fleet, okay? Like, that was my down payment. I was like, okay, I don't have too many external threats. I'll build the fleet, and that was the previous year that I built it. And it'll be really useless for a while. Although this turn,
Think about all the fun you could have had yachting.
Anyway, I would like to thank you for cutting Tucumán on this particular turn. It was much appreciated, however much it didn't benefit you.
Terrible turn for me. Things were really taking a turn here.
You say that, but you're taking out Peru. Peru gets destroyed this year.
Yeah, but
also Chile doesn't join in. Okay. The other thing diplomatically is me trying desperately to convince Chile to just take some active moves against you, because after a little bit here, I'm like, oh, Bolivia right now is a bit of a paper tiger. If Chile just moves 2 units north, you're going to collapse.
I was so worried about you and Chile combining forces here.
And I lobbied really hard for Chile to commit harder to the Pacific Front.
Well, I was mostly worried about you anyway. And you move into Chaco and Formosa, so I know that my worst fears have come true. Those of us in Bolivia go to DEFCON 5. And
DEFCON 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Counts down.
What?
It counts down, doesn't it?
I think you're right. Yeah, we go to DEFCON 1. Red sirens and wailing starts going off.
Yeah, you got the Star Wars alarm sound. And so on and so forth.
Yeah,
that's most of what I have to talk about this turn. We're continuing to deconstruct Argentina here, and I believe that we managed to just crush the entire thing.
You're right. Argentina is crushed.
So I don't know what you're complaining about. I didn't even take a supply center of yours. I just cut a potential support that you might have given to Argentina, and you moved to Pantanal, which borders 3 of my supply centers. How dare you move to a center that borders 3 of my supply centers?
You surrounded one of my supply centers, and you're in a center that borders 3 of my supply centers right now. It doesn't border any Argentinian centers or Chilean centers.
Anyway, so overall, the decision to attack you, I think, delayed the death of Brazil for probably 2 years or something like that.
Yeah,
And I don't know what kinds of messages you were sending to Brazil. Brazil was, not talking to me at this point, obviously. Although I had repeatedly lobbied for peace because I knew they would take forever for me to get Salvador and Rio de Janeiro. And I'm like, you have those 2 in Maranhão. Just become a fleet power and attack Venezuela. You didn't go for it. I don't know why.
I wonder why. Yeah, it's not like you had a whole mess of armies ready to swoop in and finish him off.
Yeah.
His guard down.
Yeah, I've been itching to attack you for 2 years at this point, and this is just when I managed to get the armies that I could do it. Because I still think of you as the premier power on the board. Okay, because, and again, you have just the ideal empire as far as I'm concerned, where you have the far-flung islands, and you have units so that you can influence everyone.
That's true. I am annoyed that I tied down a bunch of my units, making sure that Peru would not survive and sneak into Arequipa or Antofagasta. or any of my vulnerable spaces. And so because of that,
I was expecting you. Yeah, I was expecting you would take a little bit of a chance on that when that's and that Peru would have an opportunity somewhere to hold out. But rest in peace, Peru. First elimination. Rest in peace. Also, rest in peace, Venezuela. Because at this point, Venezuela is just a non-entity again. Like Venezuela had the fastest, or technically second fastest collapse of the game because of how it ended. But that's anyway. Meanwhile, Chile continues to be really good at guessing where Argentina is going to go, and they just never take any of that stuff. I think we can move on.
Well, yeah. I mean, the actual plan with Chile and me was actually that Chile would move successfully into Punta Arenas, and I would move through Drake Passage and into the Atlantic, and then we could work together against you.
Oh, joy.
Yeah, but it didn't come.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
Well, yeah, there is a point where I'm at war with both you and Chile. It's very brief, but it does happen, and it's exactly the thing that I wanted to avoid. Is like a three-front war,
It would have been very gratifying if it could have lasted a bit longer.
Yeah, but I think that I managed to diplomatically handle it when it does come up. Anyway, so I build 2 armies again. I'd be dumb to build a fleet here. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I can get rid of Pantanal from here because I could support myself there and just crunch.
That's true.
Is that what happens in spring, or do I do it in fall? I think that you get supported to Sao Paulo and then I destroy you there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that is funny.
Which is just another army that gets kablooied.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm working I'm both working really hard to defend against you and your aggressive military actions, and I'm also moving my fleets down so that I can, either.
Yeah. And at this point, I've negotiated passage for my fleet through Montevideo with Chile. So I think Chile is trying to play both sides of this conflict throughout the entire thing, and it really annoyed me how non-committal he was on the whole.
It was difficult sometimes for me as well. I was moving fleets down to try and pressure Chile a little bit to help me fight you, as well as to potentially help me with fighting you, since Paraguay had not chosen to invest in a navy. So if I could get some fleets up around Paraguay, I might be able to do some damage on the coasts.
Yeah, and sure, at this point I've taken a bunch of centers, but I feel it's the thing that really there's sort of a cognitive thing going on with how much of a color there is on the map. Okay, it's the Russia problem, and I have Mato Grosso, and it's a big space, and so I look bigger than I think I actually am.
You had 8 armies.
Yeah,
I had 6. So you had more armies than me, and I was technically the largest power for a little bit.
Yeah. At this point, I was like, okay, I'm favored. I'm going to crush Bolivia, and everything is going to be fine. And Chile's like, I'm worried about how big you're getting. And the next year, he's going to be taking San Miguel de Tucumán by agreement to help alleviate those fears. I'm going to get mad about the immediate ramifications of that. Because I could have stopped him,
Yeah, I mean, I think I will say I effectively got into Chile's head a bit here, because I was whistling the tune of Paraguay is very dangerous for a while, and trying to get a war started with the 2 of us fighting you for a while.
And does it look to you like it's happening now, or did it look?
It was right now. It is supposed to be happening. And I think it is sort of getting ready to happen. Unfortunately, this is also the moment when Colombian units that have been freed up from the war with Venezuela start to move south.
Oh yeah, the other country I've been lobbying is just hey, Colombia, you don't actually need so many armies to beat Venezuela. Venezuela's a pushover. Okay, build Pacific fleets. Please build Pacific fleets.
And Colombia's...
He just put it off forever, and I think that he could have won harder if he'd just gone ahead and built it now, because what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, that's true. I am now in this position where I can't afford to do anything about Colombia breaking previous agreements.
Mm-hmm. And we have here three more units that are crushed? No, just two, because Venezuela is going to damage us. But Sao Paulo is getting destroyed, and I have no idea what the names of centers are in the north. And all right, one complaint I have is that a lot of times the units are overlapping with the name, and I would have to scroll back to the starting map to figure out what the name of the center was.
I had that problem a lot.
Yeah. The other problem I have is just how long some names were. And then you have why do you have Erica and Viadarica? It was hard to type it out all long form, and I wasn't going to learn any abbreviations for this game because this is probably the only time I'm actually playing this variant. And so every set of orders, I was like, so it was Pantanal, support Rio Grande do Sul, Sao Paulo. Paraná, support Rio Grande do Sul, Sao Paulo. There's a lot of words to write in orders on this map.
Yeah, it was kind of rough in that way.
Anyway, so this is the turn where Chile takes some of the others on and is also moving up north. And I'm like, okay, Chile's going to build a fleet with the build that I gave him, and that's going to allow him to, deal with your fleet that's hanging out in Drake Passage, and will be fine and dandy. And with Chile's fleet build, he will turn around the Pacific Theater, and what I feel is a stalemate here, because I figured that Colombia's coming down perhaps even to help you. Anyway, they built an army.
Thank goodness. Chile finally saw the light.
Yeah. And I believe that you all but stated that at this point everybody's agreed that I'm the solo threat on the board. And so
my propaganda worked fairly well. At least that's how it felt at the time. I mean, I think Colombia was starting to feel like maybe Colombia wants to be the solo threat.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. And I think that Colombia took way longer defeating Venezuela than was even necessary because
I think it was,
look, there's 5 units, and Colombia built another army. Okay, I wanted that to be a fleet. Obviously, it wasn't a fleet. So Colombia built an army. Chile built an army. Oh no, oh no, I'm screwed.
Colombia now has as many armies as you at this point.
Yeah, and I'm gonna check. I have to check what date different things happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's the build thing. That was October 25th, and I believe that I sent you a message that pretty much said, at that point, okay, you win. Where is it? Starting about Colombian solo threats. Oh yeah, congrats on running the streets. I don't know, but at some point here I was like, oh, okay, the war against Bolivia is effectively over, and I should cut my losses. Okay, because if there's one thing I don't want to have happen, it's be the power that gets crushed by a giant coalition. That just is you know what, we could each get a bunch of centers out of it, because there's some pretty easy, distribution of centers. You get I don't know, Salta Concepcion, Asuncion. Chile would get the coastline here, and Colombia would get Maranhão, Salvador, or something like that. And that was a very scary possibility for me because, and it's one that's going to come up again through this report.
Oh, again?
Yeah, it's going to come up. It's going to come up later toward the very end.
Interesting.
All right, so we're going to step. Probably, I don't remember exactly how this all happened, but I started pulling units away from you.
And also away from Colombia. I mean, Maranhão moves away, and also Pantanal.
Yeah, I decided that at this point I needed to kill Brazil ASAP. Okay, that priority number 1. Okay, I can't really hold Maranhão in a realistic sense. Okay, I figured that Colombia was going to wind up with it. That may not have been a correct assumption.
I think you were.
Huh?
I said I think you were probably right.
Yeah, just I don't have the units to commit up there if I'm worried about a Chilean-Bolivian war. And I'm like, okay, let Colombia take Maranhão. And, and part of that is I kind of wanted Colombia to become a solo threat. Okay?
Well,
more obvious.
I didn't spoil anything, but I feel like you got what you wanted.
I did get what I wanted. Hooray! and the finger on the monkey paw curls. Anyway, So I decided that this turn was the turn that Brazil dies by strength of like 4 units each, and like by 2 units per center. And so I wound up with builds here, even though I don't think that I was expecting them. I was thinking that there would be a stronger attack from. Oh yeah, I got a build because Colombia didn't take Maranhão. I have no idea why he didn't actually take it.
Yeah, Colombia is just positioning, and being very quiet, and is kind of doing what I like to think of as the diplomacy variation of speak softly and carry a big stick, which in this case, walk softly and carry a big stick. So sneak up behind them and then smash them over the head once you're ready. Overwhelming.
You froze up there a little bit for me.
Oh,
I get the meaning though. Yeah, my Zoom is claiming that my internet connection is unstable. Oh gosh, we should be able to handle. Fine, cut that out if you want. So Colombia is coming down, and I'm really worried about Colombia coming into the South Atlantic. I tell Colombia, of course, that movements to the South Atlantic or movement into Maranhão would be considered a declaration of war. I really like that sort of stuff. Like, this would be a declaration of war. I like sending those messages. I also really like sending negotiation messages which have, like, complicated terms. Okay, and that's why I'm such a big fan of your dominance of the Pacific here. Because, like, it's really weird to have, like, it's not, I give you this supply center, you give me this supply center. That's boring. What's fun is I'm the only one who has fleets in this entire ocean. That's fun.
With that term in the contract, I could dominate the Pacific.
Yeah. Anyway, so I lose some of Argentina. Don't worry, I'll get it back. And I reposition my units closer to Chile. I told Chile when he built an army that I would necessarily have to move armies south for my own protection.
Even though you were getting worried about Colombia.
I'm not getting worried about Colombia. I want Colombia to do well because then you guys will stop attacking me.
Oh well, I guess we'll see.
And that's what happened, isn't it? Anyway, so I built my second fleet here.
Oh, yay! So that you can
and my one fleet gets out to Rio de la Plata. Have you guys talked about the little artistic differences that Soroka put in throughout the game?
We mentioned how
Argentina didn't like that there was an S-shaped arrow to get from Buenos Aires to where the fleet there in Rio de la Plata is, and so Soroka put a sea monster where it turned around.
Oh yeah, I like that. That's true.
And also, you've got your. I assume those are alligators.
Those are alligators.
Okay.
I like my alligators, and I also like the one other touch, which
the RIPs.
Yes, the tombstones at the very bottom of the screen, with a little raven perched on each one.
Yep. Anyway, so I think at this point we had negotiated collectively somewhat that we would start stopping Colombia.
At this point, it might not have been at exactly this moment. It might have been more like right here when Colombia actually occupies both of our centers.
I think it was before this because I'm moving. I think it was on the previous turn because I'm moving the fleet up north.
Oh yeah, you might
already. So like we've already started coordinating, being like, okay, the Buenos Aires fleet goes to Rio de la Plata to Greater Panamá.
Oh no, I think
stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Things are going on where we're like, okay, we need to stop Colombian fleets from getting too far down the Atlantic, and you need to start. And you've moved your fleet up to Trujillo again.
And the other,
and also, at this point, we've negotiated the things.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And at this point, we very nearly have a good defensive line. Okay, so like the next couple years are just like positioning to some extent.
We don't have to talk too much about this unless you have something in particular you want to highlight.
I'll highlight something when I see it.
Okay.
Next turn.
Oh, this is build phase. I
destroyed Pernambuco.
Why did you destroy Pernambuco?
Because it was untenable.
But the very next season you move a unit into Pernambuco.
I thought it would bounce. I did.
Untenable. I feel like it was a useful position, and you should have probably destroyed Corrientes or Montevideo or something.
I didn't want you guys attacking me again. But I didn't think that the Pernambuco was necessary. Anyway, so this map does matter, okay? And I don't know whether you noticed this at the time, but Colombia starts giving it one particular support order. Okay, this was negotiated. I'm going to try to scroll to the terms exactly, because, you know, we're getting to the point where we're talking about draws, okay? Who gets to live, who gets to die. Okay? You know, the classic discussions of, like, okay, how good of a result do we get, even though, like, there's no point system in, like, a forum game variant.
Right.
So what turn was this? This was November 17th. Gotta scroll down because I know that I sent a really fun treaty.
This part of the game is where you start to flirt with making a terrible mistake.
Oh, no. I'm working my own self-interest here. Yeah. All right. So on November 13th, I sent. Okay. So I asked Chile at this point whether he would be receptive to cutting you out of the draw, and he was. Mm-hmm. And of course, I asked Colombia if he was receptive, and he was. And Colombia wanted to know sort of terms. Okay, and I came up with them on November 13th, where I said, okay, so at the moment I'm destroying Pernambuco. Take it as a signal of good faith that I'm not gunning to get Maranhão back. I would like your fleet in Baía de Todos os Santos not to advance in the spring, and to withdraw in the fall. Such a withdrawal may be violated, letting it get dislodged by our combined Atlantic Navy. Meanwhile, continue your advance in the Pacific. And this is the fun one. In fall or next year, start habitually putting supports for either Chaco or Pantanal to take Bolivian centers. I take the opportunity at a yet-to-be-determined turn that you won't know about. That way, Chile and I can be sure Jump on Bolivia won't be at the same time you stab for the win. Okay. Which I think is a reasonable treaty, okay? Because it means that I would be able to take your centers without you seeing Colombia withdraw, and Colombia wouldn't be able to instead just attack Santa Cruz himself. It's a fairly decent treaty.
I think it was good in theory. Like many things.
Yeah, good in theory. Yep. And I was really proud of it at the time, and it gave sort of like a shape to what I thought would be the last major turning point of the game. It wasn't actually the last major turning point of the game. But, yeah, this turn has some things that matter. Anyway, Colombia immediately hated that I moved back to Pernambuco, even though I didn't say I wouldn't. People just keep inferring things, and I'm very explicit about terms.
I feel like signing a contract with you might be like making a deal with the devil or something. Oh, you didn't notice that term about your soul? All
right. I will contest that. When the devil asks you for your soul, there are no like catches. Okay, the devil makes abundantly clear exactly what's going to happen. You know exactly everything.
That's a fair point. Usually, it's the human who has to find a loophole or something in those kinds of stories.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's most of what happened this turn. We have a fun maneuver where we dislodge my fleet so that it could advance to whichever spot was necessary, but Colombia held, so whatever. And we continue just holding for a couple turns, waiting for Colombia to come a little bit further down the Pacific, which maybe was incorrect, but in this sense, we're allowing Chile to get sort of in position to do his part of the stab.
I think your like larger mistake here is trying to draw chisel when you have a partner who's as gigantic as Colombia and unwilling to actually move units backwards or anything. Because Colombia is clearly just like any player in Colombia's shoes is just going to take any opportunity now to run for the solo if possible. And Colombia is at like 15, 6 or 16 centers already.
I think it's 15 here because he doesn't have Lima, Erica, or La Paz yet. But
yeah, you're right, yes.
Because he ended with exactly 18. All right, so yeah, I will say this was a broader strategic mistake that both Chile and I did make. I didn't think that you would wind up being able to coordinate with Colombia well enough to let Colombia get down the whole way. But we'll get there. Anyway, so
what do you wanted to say about this year?
all right, so this particular year is when things. It's the next year when things happen. Okay, it's the next turn, right?
Okay.
So if we look at where the units are, right here.
Yes.
There was an agreement with you and Chile that you would support the South Pacific Ocean up to Nazca Sea, right?
Yes.
That was a problem. Okay, the problem being that Gulf of the Guafa was supposed to follow it up.
Yes.
To South Pacific Ocean. Okay, and that wound up being the deciding factor to be like, okay, now or never. And we decided on the last day that now is the turn. And immediately speaking, it looks like it works. If we show the spring move.
Oh yeah, you guys do stab me.
Like this is a devastating stab. This is one of the stronger ones that you could do.
This
like
is
you start like how many centers do you start with here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, at the end of the season, 8. You have 8 right now, and at the end of the year, you're going to have 3.
Yes, at the end of the year, I will have 3. That's true.
Yeah.
Including the one I can't defend, Islas Juan Fernandez, which might as well not be a center of mine, except that it is providing me with an extra unit.
Yeah, and we actually deliberately didn't take. We didn't take IGF. We didn't take IGF because we wanted your units to be clogged a little bit. And we thought that it would mostly hinder Colombia there, and that was I think probably the bigger mistake. Although I think that you would have destroyed Lima first.
Probably.
So like I don't think it wound up mattering. So we can look at the fall turn here.
I think that the approach to trying to attack me was not the problem. I think it was the trying to attack me right now from this position. Yeah. I thought that we would be able to do the whittling and that you wouldn't quite be able to coordinate with Colombia. That Colombia wouldn't buy that you're convoying down. Spoilers that you're going to buy anything though. That's the issue you have is that Colombia doesn't have to believe me. Colombia just has to want a solo. And even if the move that Colombia makes doesn't succeed, the worst Colombia could end up with is a 3-power draw.
Yeah, and this is the major mistake of the game there, yes. Anyway, I think it's the sort of first smell of trouble is that Colombia went for La Paz himself.
Yes.
Which, that's the problem because La Paz was sort of like the stretch center here. In fact, in spring turn, we had floated the idea that he should retreat River Alta, and he didn't. But the problem is that after we stab you, it's too late to some extent, right?
Yeah, you should have been trying. If you wanted to stab me, you should have gotten Colombia to move his entire front line back, basically. And if Colombia really wanted to just whittle the draw down, Colombia should do that. Mm-hmm. But no diplomacy player who's in the dominant board topper position will usually do that because they know if they do that, they are giving up a chance to solo.
Yeah. And as we all know, the solo is the only way to win. Draws everybody loses.
Yeah. It's just a shared loss.
Yeah.
It's a loss where you survived and you were equal to the other players. But it is, it's better than being eliminated.
Yes, it is.
Better than having the other person get a solo.
Yeah. Overall, the stab was ill-advised. But at least we were all in on it. At least Chile and I both decided to do it. But
yeah, that's true. If it was just one of you, that would have made it worse for you guys. Although maybe if Chile did it by himself, maybe if Chile just walked into Antofagasta and Islas Juan Fernandez or something, then maybe that would have worked. Because then I was trying to work with you.
That might have done it.
I don't know, but that might have allowed teamwork to still exist for a minute while you guys positioned to finish me off. But then again, maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to say.
It's hard to figure it out. And I mean, really, we thought that Chile would just win the race to Arica, even from here. But we didn't think that the convoy would happen.
Yeah. which makes sense. One wouldn't assume a convoy would happen, and it does.
Yeah.
Um,
And at that point, we're like, oh no, okay, we have to start talking to Bolivia again and see, okay, is there a way to get him back in a draw? I'm going to think of one. The game's over on this turn, as far as I'm concerned.
my 50 Bolivian troops stand ready to deliver the solo victory to Colombia.
Yeah, there's, at this point, nothing that we could do to stop it from happening. And it felt kind of bad. But, I don't know, I feel like it's our duty to try to have the smallest draw possible, but we were perhaps too optimistic in our capacity to actually do it.
I think if we had actually had more success against Colombia, then we could have tried draw whittling. But we needed to actually push Colombia out of some of those spaces. Like, if we had actually succeeded in pushing Colombia back in these C spaces on the side, either side, or if you'd taken any of these non-supply center spaces away from Colombia, then would have prevented...
Yeah, the problem is that we just couldn't.
I mean, I think that it would have happened if we were just patient, basically. I think it would have...
really patient, okay? Because, like, the next turn, like, we plausibly could have gotten our fleets up here, and the breakthrough would have happened, I think, in the Atlantic.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you needed to creep your fleets up along the Atlantic coast. And, like, going back, you weren't really trying very hard to do that, I don't think. Like, it was you're doing it very slowly. And I feel like, in retrospect...
All right, the fleet that's right here in Todos los Santos is doing a pretty good job.
Hang on.
But,
here retreat.
It just took it. It just retreated the Colombian fleet here, but then I do the retreat back. And you would say that I should have instead tried to move the fleet up to Salvador there.
Yes, and move another fleet into Todos los Santos. And...
yeah, the problem is that having a fleet in Salvador and Todos los Santos isn't good enough.
You need to...
Yeah, like you need the fleet in Pernambuco, and if there's an army in Pernambuco, it's too crowded.
Yeah, you need to rotate it out, and that's possible to do. It's probably going to be unwieldy. It's going to be a difficult transition to make, but if you can make it happen, and Colombia wasn't working hard to stop it from happening or anything.
No, he wasn't.
It's been kind of complicated.
I will concede that point. Like Colombia was actually fairly passive on the entire east of the Andes front.
Yeah, I think so, especially with regard to the only two fleets that Colombia had.
Well, he got another one just now, but yeah.
That is true. Eventually another one appeared.
Yeah. So, like, if we hadn't done the stab, okay, most of the stuff that happened in the East Atlantic there is pretty similar to what would have happened if we hadn't stabbed you.
Yeah.
Right? Just like in what fleets are where, because it's kind of crowded. And like at this point, I think that we would have probably started getting through in the Atlantic.
I think so too. I mean, if we wanted to actually push Colombia back a bit,
the other thing though that I was worried about here, since you're talking about draw whittling, and I haven't brought this up really too much here, but we stabbed you, but if you have to pick who to stab, like there's two options. I feel okay. It's me and you, and so I had to be the one who floated it harder. I don't know if you brought up the idea of draw whittling to the other powers.
I just thought draw whittling at this point was really premature and not a good idea. Like we needed to actually push Colombia back a bit, and it was possible. And I think trying to eliminate each other when Colombia was so large was just going to be a really dangerous idea. Because just like I threw 2 centers to Colombia and he won because of that, you could have thrown Salvador and Rio.
Yeah, and I know I diplomed to that effect. Okay, while you and Chile, like during the brief period where I was aboard with all 3 of you, like I told you guys, I'm going to throw it. I'm totally prepared to. And while we were talking about the draw whittling, like I was repeating ad nauseum. Okay, we need to make sure that during the stab that we stab him hard enough and fast enough that he can't throw. And it happens.
Almost did. You almost made it.
Like it was really close, I think. But
if I hadn't been decisive and recognized that I was not going to survive or be included in the draw, then you would have actually gotten me.
Yeah.
You would have gotten three-power draw then.
Yeah, or if Colombia had just been, slightly more greedy on the individual supply center and taken Lima. But, that of course would ruin the entire convoy plan. So we were hoping that Colombia would decide to take Lima and just take the draw. but like I actually sent a message to Chile right toward the end there. We didn't think it was going to happen, that you were going to be able to throw it before you did the convoy. and I said, like the night before orders, I'm a paranoiac. What do you think the chances are of Bolivia convoying a Colombian army to Antofagasta? It got to be zilch, right?
And
close, very close.
When I did that, Chile actually moved to try and bounce it, but I supported it in.
Well, to try to bounce it. It wasn't to try to bounce it. It was to try to actually move up. But, yeah.
But on the bright side...
Oh, well. On the bright side, the game, came to an exciting conclusion, as I was saying. Like, there were a lot of twists and turns going on in this game, and, like there was a running discussion between Colombia and me in the early to mid game of, okay, who's the biggest and most scary power? And for a while it was you. For a little bit we were talking Venezuela, and it turned out to be the corner power that has 3 places to build. Colombia historically in this variant has a really good track record.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the variant. Okay, so since we've reached the end of the...
you can give your thoughts on the variant, your thoughts on what you might have learned from the game in general, any parting bits of wisdom. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay. I would say that armies are better than fleets, that denying people builds matters, that... I don't know, I think that Colombia is starting off in the best position, and I feel like I lucked out in Sao Paulo, and if I hadn't, and if Brazil had been, like, equal to me tactically, then I wouldn't have done as good as I did. Because if you look at the end map, like, oh, what does Paraguay look like? Paraguay looks like what could have happened to Brazil. This is what a Brazilian empire looks like. I feel like Paraguay and Brazil kind of want to take each other's place. Like, you've played Versailles, yeah?
Yes.
You've played several times. Okay, and my analysis there is that Poland wants to take over the USSR, the USSR wants to take over Poland, and after that they're the same country.
That's what Big Gun always says.
He says that they always attack each other, but like...
Yeah, he says that they want to take each other over.
Yeah, I think that after they take each other over, they're effectively the same thing.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, it's just a struggle for dominance, like 2 personalities sharing one body.
Yeah. And I really love Versailles, and I'd be willing to play a game of that at some point.
That sounds like fun. Although you are a devious, twisted one, so
I actually... speaking of Versailles, okay, so like when the variant of Versailles came out, it was a bunch of years ago, I managed to get, technically speaking, the first solo in Versailles and play Diplomacy.
Wow.
Technically. It was a gunboat game, and it was a live game.
Oh,
But so like it's first in the sense that I played a faster version of the game, and it was gunboat, and I was given Turkey and Greece. So like
that would help.
Yeah, so it's not actually that impressive, but my analysis of that was that it's impossible to attack the USSR in gunboat as Turkey. Like the front actually locks up immediately. Like before I really started attacking Russia in whatever that game that was, I was in the UK.
Wow.
Like it really stalemates in gunboat along the north-south line.
That is really interesting.
I also like tried to make a map for like when there was a poll about what variant to put out. I was like, oh, I want Versailles to win. Let's make a map to show what it could look like, because the map matters. In my opinion, that's a takeaway that's totally separate from the variant. Okay, which is I play on Play Diplomacy instead of other sites because Play Diplomacy has the best looking map.
That is true. Play Diplomacy definitely has the best looking map.
And if I'm going to stare at a game board for like 200 hours, it has to be pretty. Okay, that's non-negotiable.
I think you're right. It does need to be good looking, and Play Diplomacy has the best looking stuff. And it's pretty easy to learn how to use the site. It's like one of the easiest sites to learn, I think.
Like I've been playing there for it'll be 10 years in February. I don't know. The backstabber map just isn't as good. I don't know why nobody else does the the topographic, the terrain thing. Okay, it's not that hard to put that layer on.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean,
Like, Soroka managed to do it. Like, this map is beautiful. Shout outs to our GM, Soroka.
Yes, Soroka did a great job with the map and with GMing.
Yeah.
Writing colorful commentary.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know if you've looked at the order results, not the ticker.
Yes.
Yeah, where it has the alternate.
Yes, Soroka gave
alternate ending, because I was at the end here. I'm like, what are my units even supposed to do? I got like so many units that can't do anything, and I know that we're gonna lose.
Oh.
It's like you have to stand by and watch. So yeah, I ordered my fleet in Corrientes. Okay, my nuclear submarine in Corrientes, built-in secrets in the Paraguayan naval labs to attack her.
To launch your nukes at Arica.
Arica. I actually didn't look up how to pronounce most of the territories here.
I understand.
But yeah, Arica makes sense because second syllable it's Spanish.
Yeah. Other takeaways.
Gosh. Manaus doesn't seem to be actually that good for Brazil, but I can't tell that from just how it was used here because it went south, you know?
Yeah. I think I know you said that you thought that Colombia had the best starting position, but I think it's really competitive between Colombia and Brazil.
Yeah, fair. Like I would say at the end of the first year, it felt like it should be Colombia as favored just because Brazil got hamstrung. Okay, I feel like that's something that really changed how this game went as opposed to other games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously things that happened in 1901 are, was 1835. I don't like it when the years start with numbers that aren't the one. That's also why Versailles starts with 1831 in play dip. Okay, as I pointed that out, I'm like, you can make it 1831, please.
Well, I'm glad you...
I was just in the comment thread and I was active.
I'm glad you have a voice in shaping that.
Yeah, then I dropped out of the forum for several years, so it doesn't even matter. But I don't know. I don't have any other major takeaways because I feel like the game went off the rails of what a normal game of this variant probably looks like so early. Just because the power dynamic shifted so dramatically. Because there didn't need to be a giant Stop Colombia alliance because Paraguay's taking care of it. That's fine. She'll do it. That's fine. Anyway, I don't know. That's most of it that I have as takeaways. I feel like a triple between Bolivia, Paraguay, and Chile is very pitchable as three small powers in the south.
I think that if we had...
And Mato Grosso is the best inland center that's not a supply center.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd probably take Mato Grosso over some supply centers. I don't know which ones, but it's a really good place to be.
Yeah.
At least for someone who knows how to move dynamically.
I think you're right.
Oh yeah, and crushing units is good on here as well. I feel just because you can just surround things with armies.
Oh yeah.
And the Andes do matter a lot.
Oh my God, the Andes matter so much. If not for the Andes,
I mean, I know you probably know a lot more about that than I do because I never even I didn't touch the Andes for the most part. Okay, but you in Chile especially, I think had a lot to worry about regarding them.
Yeah, we definitely thought about them a lot. I thought of them as my last...
my last take is that the rivers aren't that helpful in general, except for getting a fleet out. The Amazon might as well not exist. Yeah,
the Amazon is I think your fleet is actually better than the Amazon on this particular map.
Yeah,
but that's not saying much.
Yeah. La Plaza is a better... we got a better river down here. And don't build fleets. Okay, if you're that's Venezuela, don't build fleets over armies.
Oh, Venezuela, why did you do it? I hope you liked this video. If you did, you too can participate in helping me make and promote great diplomacy content, either by joining my supporters on Patreon or by writing subtitles for the videos in other languages, in addition to liking, subscribing, and commenting, all of which helps this channel grow. Follow the links in the video description or comment below for more. And I would like to briefly thank the people who are already helping me out via the methods I've mentioned, whose names and screen names are on the screen now. Let's keep going and make this the biggest diplomacy community out there. Let's try and hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Until next time, Florida Man out.